This show is produced by the Harwood Podcast Network.
Hi, I'm Cindy Harris, and we love making this show available to you free of charge. If you'd like to help us keep it that way, make a contribution to our Karma Jar or become a show sponsor. To learn more, visit our website. Today I'm making this delicious pumpkin swirl quick bread. Now if you'd like to follow along with the recipe while I bake it, just get your smartphone and scan the QR code here on the screen and the recipe will pop right up. Well, this quick bread is loaded with pumpkin flavor and a delicious swirl of cream cheese right in the middle. We're going to be baking this quick bread in a 9 by 5 inch loaf pan. And whenever I'm making a quick bread, I like to make a parchment sleeve to lift it out of. I find that works really well. So I've cut a piece of parchment so that it fits lengthwise in the pan just like that. And then I can use these as the handles to pull it out. But before I put the parchment in, I'm going to take some of my baking spray and I'm going to spray the sides and the bottom. Then I'll place my parchment sleeve right in the center and give it one last spritz. And then we'll set this aside. And now we'll make the swirl part of the bread. And this is a sour cream and cream cheese mixture. Now I do want to mix this up really well, but it's not enough for me to break out my big standing mixer. So I'm going to use my little hand mixer for that. So I just have a medium-sized bowl and I'm measuring out a half a cup of sour cream. Now I'm using a non-fat sour cream today, but you can use whatever you have on hand. And then to the sour cream, I'll add 2 tablespoons of sugar, 2 ounces of cream cheese, and I like to use a full fat cream cheese for this. And the reason being is the non-fat and the light cream cheese is great if you're not cooking it, but if you do cook it, it tends to get a little watery on you, so the full fat is the best to use for this. And then 1 egg. And then I'm going to cream this until everything comes together. Now I'm not concerned about this being totally smooth at this point because when the cream cheese bakes, it's going to liquefy a little bit, so don't worry about that. And now I'll set this to the side. Now for the pumpkin batter, I've got just a little bit bigger bowl, and to that I'm going to add 1.5 cups of flour, a teaspoon of baking soda, a teaspoon of cinnamon, a half a teaspoon of ginger, a quarter of a teaspoon of ground cloves, and a quarter of a teaspoon of salt. I'll be using my flat whisk and I'll whisk all of these together. I want to make sure that the spices get totally mixed into the flour. And then I'll add a cup of sugar. I'll mix that in with my whisk. Then I've melted a half a cup of butter and it's cooled, so I'll put that in, along with 1/3 cup of water, a cup of canned pumpkin, and 2 eggs. And I'll take my whisk and I'll whisk all of this together. We want to make sure that that pumpkin gets totally mixed throughout. And towards the end, I'm going to switch from my whisk to my spatula, and that will really help me see what's going on the bottom, so I make sure I don't want to have any pockets of flour. Now we're going to be layering the pumpkin and the cream cheese into the loaf pan. So I'll start with my pumpkin. I'll spoon about half of the batter into the loaf pan. And with my spatula, I want to make sure and push that all the way to the edges of the pan. And then I'll take my cream cheese and I'll pour that right on top. And with a knife, or I'm using my little offset spatula, I'm going to make sure that the cream cheese also goes to the edges of the pan. And then we'll top that with the rest of the pumpkin mixture. Now, if your children were learning about rocks and geology in school, you could tell them that this is like a sedimentary quick bread. That's because it has these different layers. And I do want to smooth that top down, again getting that pumpkin all the way to the edges. Now I've preheated the oven to 350 degrees, and quick breads generally take about an hour. And so I'll put the timer on for 60 minutes, but I will test it with a skewer to make sure that it's cooked through. I'm going to let this sit here on a rack for 30 minutes. Now after 30 minutes, the pan has cooled down a little bit and I want to get the bread out of the pan. So I'm just going to take one of my dinner knives. I'm going to run it along the two sides where there is no parchment. And I'll grab it by the handles and lift up. You can see our nice cheesecake swirl right in the center. Now this bread needs to totally cool down before we can cut it. So that's going to be another hour or so. Now once the bread is cooled, I wanted to slice it for you and show you that great swirl right in the center. And then for a little taste, it's a great moist pumpkin bread, and then it has that little cheesecake swirl in it. It's really nice and creamy. Really great for the holidays. Now this bread is not overly sweet at all, but you will want to keep it in the refrigerator because of that cream cheese layer. Well, if you'd like to try this pumpkin swirl quick bread at home, just go to our website and go to the Daily Bread show notes, and I'll have the recipe there for you. If you do make it, send me a photo so I can send you the quick bread badge. I hope you'll join us on Facebook. That's where I do all my vlogging. And as always, if you have any questions or ideas for me, please send me an email. I'll see you next time.